It's one of the...
Oh, jeez, Rick.
Morty, we need to get... You gotta shove these way up your butt, Morty. Like, way, way up your butt. Oh, jeez,
okay, Rick. Okay, Rick. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Anime Club After Dark, the podcast that delves into all things anime, manga, and otaku culture related. I'm your host, Alex, but you can call me Senpai, and joining me tonight, I am joined by our czar of source material, John.
Hi.
I always, when it's just me and you never say anything like, Show always has these elaborate intros.
Yeah, it's been a while since I just did the hi. So I had to bring it back into rotation.
All right, well, tonight you and I are going to be discussing what I guess could be considered a bit of a niche subject to talk about, but I think it's something that you and I are, we looked at this and we thought, maybe there's something here to talk about, so we're going to talk about it tonight. You came across this article that is essentially a, what's the word I'm looking for?
Breakdown.
A breakdown of a study that was done, I believe, last year.
Yeah, it's from 2019.
Of how adult animation has become the fastest growing category in animation, particularly in the West.
Yep.
And we thought it'd actually be a good idea to talk about this. And number one, see if it's right, and number two, pontificate about what it may mean for not only Western animation companies but for the anime industry going forward.
Yeah. And it's just, so when I came across this article, it was like 3 a.m. or something, and I was just scrolling through Reddit, and I just saw this article, and I was like, hey, that's a topic idea, I guess, because Castlevania just finished airing, or it just was released, so this is coming off the cusp of Season 3? Is that the newest season?
Yes.
Okay, so Season 3 of Castlevania just came out, and I was like, and I just watched it, and I was like, I loved it. So it was interesting.
Which I'd like to point out, we are planning to do a full-on episode of the first 3 seasons of Castlevania in this podcast sometime soon.
Hopefully sometime soon. No promises. Schedule conflicts and whatnot. But it was just interesting because I was like, when I think of adult animation, at least in the West, I don't really consider, or rather, I can't think of very many examples of it without including the fact that they're comedies, right?
Yeah. I mean, when you think of, like, American animation, you think of one of two things. Either, like, Simpsons or Family Guy-esque, raunchy, adult-themed comedies, or Disney movies.
Yep.
Which are aimed at children.
Yeah. And this Western anime that we have, I wouldn't say they don't all necessarily pull from anime inspirations. There are quite a few that kind of pull from anime stuff, which is kind of cool. Like, we do have, even if it's not just adult animation, we do have anime, Western anime, like the Avatar. Like, I can't...
Avatar: The Last Airbender, yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else that perfectly exemplifies that other than Avatar: The Last Airbender. Maybe Ruby, because Ruby is also Western made. It's heavily anime inspired.
Yeah. You might throw Teen Titans in there. Not Teen Titans Go. Fuck that bullshit. Now, the original Teen Titans on Cartoon Network, you might throw in there as like a shonen-esque inspired cartoon.
Yeah, but so the main thing is that a bunch of these Western animations and adult animations, it's very rare that we get anything that's not comedy. With the exception of nowadays, it's kind of like, what was the statistic? 56% of the new adult animated TV shows are still comedy sitcoms. But the rest, the other 44%, are actually like split between Western anime, epic, superhero, horror, musical, action, sci-fi, and drama.
A pretty diverse range, actually.
Yeah, it's good to see that people are starting to consider using adult animation as a medium instead of like
or using animation to tell adult stories.
Yeah, and it's something that you think of 10 years ago, even further back, 20 years ago, it was unheard of. Like, we barely had anything that we would consider adult animation. The only thing I can think of would be like Spawn, the animated series.
Yeah, but that was like a rarity. That was like an outlier.
Yeah,
a huge outlier
huge
when
outlier.
it originally came out. But yeah, we tried before we started recording to actually find a statistic like this for 10, 15, 20 years ago, and we could not find anything like that. But just having lived through it at that time, I would say you could easily say 80 to 85, maybe even 90% of the animation that was coming out of the West back then was strictly comedies / sitcoms.
Yeah, like I'm thinking back to watching Adult Swim, in the mid 2000s, and we had like the Coast to Coast with Space Ghost, Aqua Teen
Hunger Force.
Yeah, and we had like raunchy, like just out there comedies, but nothing really serious. They were just like satirical, and it was just funny, sitcoms.
Yeah, or farcical.
Yeah, and when you think to now where we do have a diversified thing of using adult animation, like Love, Death, and Robots, I think that's what that series was called on Netflix.
Yes.
That one wasn't just comedy. It actually had some like pretty far out stories. Some of them were actually sad and scary. It was really cool. I really enjoyed it.
It had some pretty heavy themes in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, for me, as someone who is just, as much as we talk about anime here, and I think you are like this too, like as much as we love anime, we just are in love with animation as a medium for storytelling. And it's really great seeing some of these like Western studios embrace this idea that, you can use animation for more than just, settling kids down for an hour or, fart jokes.
Yeah. And it's still filled with fart jokes and like just crude, crass humor. But I remember we were talking last night, I think it was, where I talked about my origin story of like, I've always just liked animation. It hasn't always been anime, but I've always just liked animation. And to this day, I still love cartoons, and I've never really grown out of it. And it's not because it's not that I don't like real life TV stuff. I do enjoy occasional real life shows. It's just I like animation more because they're more interesting to me.
Yeah, I think you can also visually tell a much more captivating story through animation than you can with live action.
Yeah,
because you're not limited to what's physically possible to create.
Yeah.
with animation.
Just time and budget at that point, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, and talent. How much talent you can get on board with you, which kind of goes into budget. But one of the things that the article and the study itself mentioned as a potential like catalyst for the cause of this rise may be in part due to the death of cable television. I would say the very slow death of cable television. And I think there's something to be said for that with the rise of streaming services.
I definitely would agree with the article because TV is very restrictive, right? Like, think of a show like Love, Death, and Robots with all the gore, sex, and all that other random crap in it, That stuff would never play in Middle America, so not a lot of producers would be behind producing this. But
yeah, because you're not going to get any advertising for it.
Yeah, but
you're not going to get advertisers to get on board to advertise during your time slot.
Yeah, but with the advent of streaming services and the internet, we don't really have those type of restrictions anymore. If someone doesn't want to watch something like that, they don't have to watch it. It's not like they're forced to, well, I've watched everything on Netflix, so I have to watch this thing that I don't want to watch. It's like, no, dude. No one is forcing you to do that. Go rewatch something you want to watch.
Now, when it comes to anime in particular, like there's always the thing about Toonami, right? Because Toonami's been around forever, and it's responsible for introducing a lot of people our age, millennials, to anime growing up in the late 90s throughout the 2000s.
Oh, yeah. Before it got axed in like mid 2000 and then it came back.
Yeah. And now it's every Saturday I look on there and like on Twitter, it's going to be something that is airing on Toonami is fucking trending, which is great. But I look at that and I think like, how viable is that going forward? Because I mean, I have enormous love for Toonami and what it did, getting anime out there to the masses, especially here in the US.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It worked for me because for many, many years, it was the only way I was watching anime was the stuff that they would show on there. But then I look at where it is and it's on cable television, and I don't know about you, but pretty much any time now I'm watching television, whether it's cable or network television, it's probably to watch some sporting event that's on live. And I don't watch the stuff that networks peddle as like their dramas and their comedies anymore. I don't go on cable. I don't even have a cable TV subscription anymore.
I still have cable TV because that's other people in my household like watching television. But I definitely agree. But there's also the fact that Toonami likes to play a lot of like teen stuff, like shonen stuff. Like I remember they were showing JoJo's on there one night, and I was like, "Yo, they showed JoJo's on this? What? JoJo's is on the West Coast? That's tight." But
yeah, over the last like year and a half or so, they've essentially just shown all of JoJo's.
And
all that's been animated so far, so parts 1 through 5,
and it's
gotten a lot of new people into the JoJo's fandom,
and that's a great thing because there's a lot of seinen and shonen that Japan pumps out that Toonami can just keep licensing and keep making new fans of. So
yeah,
I don't think there's a problem with them doing that. Like it's just like with us, a bunch of the shows that were on there were just introductory animes. Like easy to get into shonens like Dragon Ball Z, Inuyasha, Yu Yu Hakusho.
A lot of the stuff that they showed in the late 90s, early 2000s were what we consider today to be like gateway anime.
Yeah. Eva.
And Eva. Did they ever show Full Metal Alchemist?
Yes, they did.
Or was that Adult Swim?
Oh, shit. That might have been.
I don't remember. I cannot remember. I'm sure someone listening to this will tell me that I'm fucking wrong, but I feel like it was Toonami, but I may have been wrong about that. I know that they were the ones that showed Fooly Cooly because they fucking love that shit. They showed Fooly Cooly all over the place. Jesus Christ.
But they also would show like anime movies. Like I remember watching.
Yes.
This might have been Adult Swim instead, actually. No, it was definitely Adult Swim because it was rated 14 and above. Because Toonami was, again, mainly just shonen, like some stuff that might have been seinen, but it's mainly just shonen shows.
Yeah. But I just wonder how feasible that is going forward. Because, like I said, like television is dying a very slow death. And the only people who really watch it on a regular basis anymore are older people. And it's a demographic that's getting older and older, and it's a demographic that these companies aren't really shelling out a lot of money to latch onto.
I think it's, everyone has their time, right?
Yeah.
I think Toonami, I'm glad that it came back, and I'm glad that it can continue to induct new members into our cult-like following of anime worshippers. But, if it's time, it's time, because there's so many other ways to get anime, and everywhere in other types of media, there's always anime stuff. So it's not too hard to get into the industry anymore, You didn't have to stay up late to go watch them at midnight.
No, I mean, you got things like Crunchyroll and High Dive now. You can watch it whenever you want.
Yeah. So,
which I think is it's the way that things are going. It's more, it takes more of the consumer into account, more of what the consumer wants into account.
But I would say this definitely plays into why adult animation is growing in market size, because now, like reading that statistic, like Netflix, they can't rely on licensing content anymore. So that's why they've been slapping their name on everything and producing shows, because they're like, fuck, we need to just make shows because no one gives us money.
I don't know, I don't remember the exact number, but about a year or so ago, I read an article that said that Netflix like takes out loans to the tune of like $50 billion to create original content. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, that's like a fucking small company.
Yeah. Well, it is a small company.
I mean country, not company, country.
Yeah, and it's a strategy that seems to be working for them so far. I remember it's been waxing and waning quite a lot. Like every now and then they'll be like, "Oh, Netflix is losing money." Then all of a sudden, fucking Tiger King comes out, and then Joe Exotic is in everyone's lives during the quarantine, and now Netflix is like the #1 show streaming services and shit like that,
Yeah. So one of the things we talked about how for fucking decades now, animation in the West has been mainly geared towards either children, and I would say probably largely towards children and younger people.
Yeah.
Or to like the raunchy, like, sex jokes and fart jokes comedy of the adult stuff like Simpsons, Family Guy, stuff like that.
Yeah.
For the former, with the stuff that was marketed towards younger people, a lot of that thrived on this idea of like marketability and licensability. It's easy to market something to children that has nothing bad in it. Like it has no sex, no drugs, no violence, and none of that stuff. It's easy to market that stuff to kids, and advertisers will jump all over that shit.
Yeah.
And then licensability, it's easy to license stuff to children because you can say, hey, there's this cartoon you like. There's these 50 different toys you can now buy from it.
Yeah.
I feel like with adult-oriented animation, that's going to be less so, especially with the license ability of it for third parties to make things like toys or, other ancillary things that people can buy. But then I look at the anime industry and I think, well, the anime industry has actually made this work because there are some pretty like adult-oriented, I won't say raunchy, but anime that have violence and stuff like that in it that are still marketable.
Yeah.
They come out with things like, art books and figures and, plushies.
I mean, I definitely think it's kind of different for Japan. Because they have diehard fans over there, right? That will buy literally every type of product you put out available. In the West, you're right. Like these adult animations aren't as marketable, and they don't definitely sell as much merch as something like a kid show like My Little Pony would to all types of audiences. But I don't think that's where it's going to be lucrative. I think the fact that adult animation in its own right is a really good form of entertainment is just enough. Like, people are going to want more. Like, when Castlevania Season 1 aired, people wanted so much more of that. Literally the next day, they're like, okay, due to how much...
Yeah, well, there were 4 episodes. I mean, I would too.
There was only 4 episodes, but it was so good, though. And everyone wanted more.
I feel like the first season of Castlevania was the creators of it, like, dipping their toe out there and saying, does anybody actually want this? And they saw, oh yeah, people fucking want this, so let's just pump some more seasons out.
Yeah, exactly. And that's I feel like that's where the marketability is in adult animation. When you have fans clamoring and foaming at the mouth demanding more, you don't need to sell that many products. People are going to want to just watch your shit.
I think in Castlevania's case, though, it was a little different because it was based on an existing property. I don't think you may have seen that much attention gravitate towards it had it been a completely original IP.
Now, I would agree because Castlevania is one of the genre-defining games. Everything is Metroidvania. Yeah. Any type of platformer that is like Metroid or Castlevania or Metroid, those are
it's considered a very iconic video game.
Yeah, it's a legend on its own. So you're right in that aspect, but it's still a viable method to get money, but I definitely don't think it's as lucrative, again, because I can't think of very many ways to get merch out there. Like Attack on Titan, I see they sell that like Attack on Titan shirts and bags and stuff at like Hot Topic, right?
Yeah.
But I don't see.
Well, and then there's also like there's this is in Japan, but I could see this coming to something similar coming to America or somewhere in the West where anime is kind of big. But like in Japan, they have Attack on Titan themed escape rooms.
Oh,
which is a method of marketing.
That's a super niche fucking escape rooms on their own are very extremely niche, but that's weird. But I guess that would work in Japan.
It's about like maybe 4 or 5 months ago, I saw an article about that, like an Attack on Titan themed like escape room, and I thought it's an interesting way to use your anime IP. But I mean, maybe it works.
I mean, I like escape rooms; they're really fun. But if people pay.
Yeah,
they're checking out different avenues that they can get money.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe that's what this has all been leading to. Like these companies, these American or Western animation studios maybe are just sticking their toes out there and just testing the waters to see, is there actually a market for this? And I think the more they actually try, the more they'll probably find, yeah, there's a market out there for it. There's an entire generation, our generation, millennials, who have, we found anime and we fell in love with it. And now we look and we see these Western companies trying to do the same thing, and it sounds like a good combination. I mean, what do you have to lose?
Yeah, and I think it's great that content creators have a new avenue to create content. Like, if you are a
Yeah.
story writer and you wanted to make a screenplay, fucking try to make it into an anime instead, you know? See if it works. Like, it's
Or a
worth a shot.
webtoon.
Or a webtoon. Yeah, there's so many different ways you can express yourselves. But I just think it's great that at least it's not just, people don't think of it as just, oh, it's just cartoons or for kids anymore. It's a great thought. You know,
That is a great thought, and I think that's the best thing that could happen to the industry is for them to realize, hey, you can make stuff for adults without it being, you know, Simpsons or Family Guy level character designs, and not have to have a fart joke every 5 minutes to keep people entertained.
Yeah, like, oh god, I used to be a fan of The Simpsons and Family Guy.
I mean, a lot of people were like pre-season 6 or 7.
And and American Dad and all the like just stupid adult
The Seth MacFarlane shows.
Yeah, I used to like them all, and then in the recent years I've just stopped watching it because it's kind of just boring.
You know,
now.
Seth MacFarlane is an anime fan.
Yeah, he is an anime fan.
I'm just saying, a Seth MacFarlane anime, I would definitely give it a shot, wouldn't you?
I don't know, because his style of like writing and comedy, it's always the same.
Oh no, I don't want a comedy. I want him to write a fucking like a drama, like an anime drama.
Yeah, I don't know how well that would work out, but
hey, he's writing and starring in The Orville, and that went from being sort of a comedy to like a really good sci-fi show. So,
is it not pure comedy anymore? I always
no,
thought it was.
It started the first like half of the first season was very satirical, but it's gotten away from that, and it's become like there's a really good sci-fi show.
Huh. Yeah, I'm never gonna check it out.
I really hope it doesn't get canceled, or if it does, someone picks it up because it's really good, and it's actually proven to me that Seth MacFarlane's actually a pretty good actor too.
Well, I knew he was a good actor. He's a good voice actor, so I'd have to assume that he's actually just a good actor.
I would, yeah. I mean, but he is. He's been a good actor on that show. But I like someone like that who's had their like life steeped in this Western animation industry could probably help bridge these two things.
Maybe. I mean, but what about how hard it is to create anime, right? We've always talked about how in Japan it's super hard to create content as a studio because everyone's overworked and underpaid, and the producers who have all the money are just ridiculous overlords who demand the impossible.
Yeah, or you have like Ufotable who just says taxes. What are those?
Yeah, but how does the growth of the industry? I don't know how to phrase this.
I think I know what you're saying. How did they avoid the same pitfalls that the Japanese industry has already faced?
Yeah,
I think the biggest one is you can't underpay your talent, because if you do, they're just eventually going to leave and go somewhere else, or they're going to get out of the industry entirely. Because that's what's happening. There's some animators in Japan who realize that there's very few companies that they can work for and make a wage that's even close to livable, and they just say, "Fuck it, I'm gonna go fucking mop floors or something."
That, because it's like we talked about it just a little bit ago. It's this industry doesn't seem that lucrative, right? Especially since we're losing a lot of the marketability. Like, we can't sell a bunch of merch.
Yeah, you look at like a Hollywood production, like, and I'm not even talking about like a top tier production, but you like for like a B tier for a B tier Hollywood movie, you're looking at like a budget of what, $100 million, $200 million. So it's got to make at least double that to be even considered profitable.
Okay.
And so I look at that, and then I look at how much money anime movies make in Japan.
Yep.
And it's like an anime movie that makes the equivalent of something like $2 million in Japan is considered like a huge success. And I'm thinking, well, if that's considered a success and making a profit, God, how little are you paying your animators?
I mean, not very much, obviously. But yeah, it just seems like, I feel like a lot of people would be afraid to dip their toes into adult animation because the industry, sure, it may be growing, but it's pretty unstable. Like, you don't know what's going to be hot or what's going to be a flop. And it just costs a lot of money to do animation, you know?
It does. A lot of people don't realize how much money is sunk into it, and not up front, because I mean, you have the upfront cost of, all the equipment it takes to make animation, all the computer equipment today. But then you also have the profit, or the salaries you got to pay the animators, plus the marketing, plus all the branding you got to do for your studio.
Yeah, and it seems like unless you hit that sweet 6-season deal in a movie, 6 seasons in a movie, right? For a show.
That used to be like the mark of success for an intellectual property.
Yeah. So it feels like, because a lot of these shows don't really feel like they'll hit the 6 seasons in a movie mark, but it seems like they'll grow enough in the first 2 or 3.
My Hero Academia.
Yeah, we're not talking about that. It just seems like it's fine though, because as long as your animation does really well for its first 2 or 3 seasons, it's got a pretty good chance at like having a huge cult following at the very minimum. Like look at Rick and Morty and how big that show fucking went off, and with all even with the toxic fandom and stuff, but it's one of the
jeez, Rick.
Morty, we need to get you gotta shove these way up your butt, Morty, like way up your butt. Oh jeez,
okay, Rick. Okay, Rick.
But that's one of the more adult, raunchy animations, but it's also got some pretty solemn moments, and it's a very solid show, right? But because of how good it is...
I mean, he turned himself into a pickle is the funniest shit I ever saw.
I swear to God, it's the funniest shit I've ever saw. The memes, the fucking memes. But I'm saying just 2 seasons of this show, all right? And not even the first... Just the first season alone created such a huge fucking cult following, and season 2 knocked it out of the park, and it became a fucking hit. Like, it's still super big, and everyone loves it, right?
It got so big, they got McDonald's to bring back the Szechuan sauce.
Yeah, like, literally, the memes that came out of this adult animation show paid back the cost of it in dividends, is all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the type of success that they should be looking forward to, like, fuck all that 6 seasons and movie shit. As long as you can make quality content that you're okay with, and then everyone else will enjoy it anyway,
Yeah, and another thing they got to avoid is they got to avoid sinking millions of dollars into every single project. Like, not every single project is going to be worthy of millions upon millions of dollars of capital. Like, know your audience. Like, if you are making something that's more niche, you don't necessarily have to put a bunch of capital behind it. That way, if it doesn't do as good as you think, it's not economically ruinous for your company.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's something that I think anime studios tend to do. They tend to sink a lot of money into stuff that ends up not being that good, and then it's just financially ruinous.
But you never know what's going to be...
The next thing has to be an enormous hit, or they're fucked.
Well, it's because you don't know the market, right? Like, who would have thought that Rick and Morty, with how stupid this show is, Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon definitely didn't think the show would be a hit as big as it is now. Like, they're like, oh, this is just a stupid show that we wanted to make because we're fucking retarded, so we're going to make this show. And then they made it, and it became so big, right?
Yeah.
So that's proof positive that you don't need a huge budget. You don't need to make it look amazing. You just need to make good content that people just like.
Yeah, the writing has to be good.
Yeah. Or, I don't know if I would call the writing of Rick and Morty good. It's
entertaining.
It's entertaining, yeah. It's at some points it's good, some points it's like just stupid, but it's still entertaining to watch. So it's whatever.
All right. Well, to wrap this up, I want to ask the final question. So, what do you think, or what do you hope for all this growth going forward, and what do you think it'll mean for Western studios and the anime industry? Because me personally, I hope this actually leads to maybe a coming together of these two industries, so we see some more I guess trans-specific partnerships of these studios.
I mean, I would love a situation where Western studios and anime studios just combine, and they're like, hey, we have the capital, you guys got the ideas, let's make it something for the entire world to enjoy. It seems like we've come such a long way since the 90s where it was super hard to get anime, right? You'd get some shady fucking VHS that's copied and, some poorly translated subtitles, to here we are 30 years later where literally 4 hours after something airs, we can get it translated, coded, and uploaded in 1080p over here on the West. Or sooner. It could be even up to like an hour after or 2 hours after. It's crazy.
Yeah. Or sometimes we get it here in the West before they see it in Japan.
Yeah.
Like Space Dandy.
Well, that's because Space Dandy was made for the West. But point being, I wish there was more crossover. I wish that the anime industry would open its arms. These studios would reach out and try to contact Western studios. And I hope Western studios are open to this idea where let's partner up with our East brothers and sisters and fucking make animation, you know? Let's make some fucking
What you're saying
shows.
is you want them to make anime great again.
Let's make anime great again.
All right. On that note, thank you out there for dropping in to listen to us. We hope you enjoyed it because we sure enjoy bringing this stuff to you. If you want to check out previous episodes of the podcast, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, BitChute, SoundCloud, and Spotify. If you want to keep up with what we're doing, you can join us on Discord, Facebook, Twitter, and our website. Shoot us an email if you have any questions or if you have ideas for topics you'd like for us to talk about in the future. Links to all these things will be down below in the description. As always, I have been your host, Alex, and I will see you next time. Say goodnight, John.
Good night, John.
Good night, John boy.